appreciate you streaming in here on Bird 365. McMullen, McDonald, and our guy from down the shore, Mike Gill, who's Mr. College T-shirt, and he's going local on us here. That almost doesn't count. If you don't have to drive for more than 2 hours, it doesn't count for me. And I know depending on short traffic, and when you leave,
it could be depending time of day, time of year, all factors in. Penn counts. I said,
you gonna give him the nod for Penn? That's like
Jody. I work in radio. How much traveling do you think I can do?
Mr. Coach of the Year, you're all the way up and down the Eastern Seaboard. What the hell? What do you think? We forget when you brag about where you've taken your team over the last several years?
It's college basketball. You know, the NIT last night. I'm watching Larry Bird's alma mater, Seton Hall, NIT finals. It made me feel nostalgia.
Wait. Time out, Coach Gill. The Phillies are on last night. The Sixers are on last night, and you're watching the NIT?
Nah, I just saw him watching the highlights in front of me.
Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah, try and pull one over on me. You're not going to sneak the fastball by me, Gill. It's not going to happen.
Who was the Tony Price? I think was when Penn made the big run. Is that right, Jody? You remember Tony Price?
Tony Price? No. Why? I don't know where you're coming up with Tony Price.
When Penn made a run, I believe they made the Final Four. So we're going way back.
Yeah, you're predating me, and I'm old. That's not good.
That's just knowledge. That's not obviously. I don't remember it that well. Now I got to look it up.
1979. Tony Price took them.
Yes.
To the Final
Bingo.
Four.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
That I can actually say I don't recall it happening and/or.
By the way, this 79 Final Four, is that not Bird and Magic?
No.
Everything's conflated to me now.
Yeah, no, you might be right because it was the 80 final the next year when Magic was a rookie. So I think you're right. I think you have the exact year. Good on you, Mike Gill. All right, forget college basketball. Let's put college basketball.
Yeah.
Although, by the way, if you want to talk college basketball, did you see the numbers that Iowa and LSU did? The highest rated basketball men or women's broadcast ever on the history, ESPN. 12 and change. Holy mackerel. Good for Caitlin Clark. I hope she has nothing but success.
They should have lost to West Virginia, by the way. They got hosed in that game.
Did they? How good is West Virginia? I don't know.
The game was tied with like a minute and a half left, and then the refs just decided that anything was a foul.
Okay. He is a Mountaineer through and through. Can't get over.
Don't ask me. Ask Dame Lillard.
What does Dame Lillard have to do with Iowa?
He tweeted about how bad the refs were.
Everybody tweets about how bad the refs are. I mean, I can't. Everybody. Go on any NBA game. The Sixers play, Mike. You're a Sixers guy. I mean, if you follow a Sixers,
no ties to either school. He was just
I know, but everybody's like we get it. All right, move on. Either overcome it or don't.
The game was close. West Virginia was tied with about a minute and a half left, and then the free throws were 35 for Iowa, 5 for West Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's because West Virginia plays dirty basketball, but we won't get into that. All right, Mike Gill, we didn't have you on last week until before the Haason Reddick trade. It came down on Friday, your typical news dump Friday for the Eagles and the Jets to announce the Haason Reddick trade. We've had some good debate here as to whether it's a win or a loss. And again, let me put on record, judging it now is not fair. You have to wait years before you come up with an actual evaluation of whether a trade is a win or a loss. But we do it all the time. We evaluate it immediately. Is this a win or a loss trade for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, this is like the Michael Carter-Williams trade, right? The peck just kept getting pushed back and back and back. I can't look at it on the surface and say that it's a win if you're not getting a pick for 2 years down the road. Now, 2 years from now, we might look back and say, oh, they have a second-round pick if it gets to a second-round pick. 67.5% of the snaps, which the Jets can control, obviously.
Yeah.
And 10 sacks. That's based on the player. It's just frustrating because you have a player, and this is business. I heard you talking about this, about the stadiums and the Reddick trade, kind of mixing them. It's business. And the Eagles didn't want to pay a player who was reaching an age that they feel that a decline is coming. So I understand that. So you have a player that doesn't want to be here and essentially
hold on. Make sure I choose your words correctly here. He wants to get paid here. Haason Reddick has never said he doesn't want to be here.
That's
if
accurate.
anything, Haason Reddick is on the record saying he wanted to be here and he wanted to stay here, but he wanted to do so at his price.
That's accurate. Right. He doesn't want to be here at the price he's currently getting paid.
Right.
The deal is frustrating because the fruits of the labor are 2 years down the road. And even if he connects and gets those benchmarks, you're getting a second-round pick 2 years from now. I feel like it was one of those, like you're wondering, okay, if they waited till draft day, if they waited till training camp, was Reddick just not going to play? Was he just not going to show up? Because by a lot of accounts, he was a very, loyal, nice guy. That's just not his style. Would he just have held out? And could the Eagles have waited until camp? Maybe somebody gets hurt. Maybe something happens. Why they pulled the trigger on a random Friday and got a pick 2 years down the road just feels like a loss on the surface right away for me.
By the way, I'm glad you brought up the Michael Carter Williams trade. I have a lot of bitterness to that trade because I got retweet Armageddon about telling people, be careful. Drew Holiday's a pretty good player and he might develop down the road. I'm taking a victory lap on that one. I am spiking the football. Drew is still around, baby. And he's done a lot of good things in his career. But yeah, I do think people get caught up in the moment. And I kind of explained to Jody, I loved Rich Cimini's explanation of the trade. And it's basically, from the Jets perspective, he's the Jets ESPN reporter. It might be a home run in 2024. It's going to look like a broken bat single in 2026, maybe if you're lucky. For the Eagles, it might be the opposite. It might look like a broken back single right now. Well, you don't have to pay him $20 million. You get Price up on the field. You get Nolan Smith on the field. They want to get younger. They want to get more cost effective. And then by 2026, if they get a good player, even if it's third round, second round, whatever you add to it, it might look a lot better down the road. But yeah, in the immediacy of it, I get why people are upset.
Well, and John, the day they signed Huff, my reaction to that was, okay, you got a younger player at a position where the older guy wanted the money. You decided to pay the younger guy. Totally understand that. Here's the problem. Like Huff has a lot now on his plate. He's got to be as good, if not better, than Reddick was for this defense to be better. Reddick's been a very good player. 2 years ago, he was an excellent player. And last year, he was very good. I know the numbers say that he took a drop, but he was a pretty solid player after that thumb injury went away. But Bryce Huff is going to have to be as good, if not better, than Reddick. And I think that's a lot to ask. Now, that doesn't mean if you just paid Reddick that he was going to be as good as he was. So you're taking a shot here that you got a younger player, paid the younger player, and they're going to get more from that. So it's the risk worth taking. But look, this is Howie's season. You anticipate winning every trade, and on the surface, it doesn't seem that trade made this team better, which is how I think we're looking at it, right? We're not worried about what the team's going to look like in 2026 on Birds 3.
Well, I am. No, I get, because I try to look at the whole thing, and I try to look at it from the GM's perspective. I think this is a perfect example of why Howie can take advantage of other GMs, because Joe Douglas doesn't give a shit about 2026, because Joe Douglas can't give a shit about 2026, because if he doesn't win right now, he's not going to be around in 2026. Right. Jody and I have talked about this many times. I bring it up many times. The fact that Howie knows he has this leash, he can do smart, common sense things that other GMs can't do. And he's taking advantage of other GMs. And he says, look, and I'll be the first one to say it. I said, he's not getting a second round pick. We always joke, and it was Thomas Dimitrov who told me how he always asked for a second round pick. What do you want? Second round pick. And And he wasn't getting a second round pick for Haason Reddick. We saw it with L'Jarius Sneed. We saw it with Brian Burns. Brian
Well,
Burns.
and the value is in the age. That's what this is telling you. Brian Burns is a 26-year-old guy. Not any better than Reddick. I mean, you could say they're comparable type of players, but there's a gap in age, and there's the value. One team values Burns because they have him at a younger age for longer, whereas the Jets getting Reddick are saying we're going for it in 2024. Whatever happens down the road.
But what I'm saying, so Howie says, all right, I can't get my second round pick. Can I get it in 2025? I can't get it. Can I get it in 2026? Maybe I can get it in 26. Maybe not. Maybe it can. But also, that's probably post Aaron Rodgers, New York Jets. Probably not a very good football team. So it's going to elevate the pick mainly from the bottom of the third round or the bottom of the second round to the top of the second round or the top of the third round. If you look at it from the long term, and I get it, everybody's like, well, the Eagles got to be all in.
Yes. The Eagles have to be all in. Right here, right now, 2024, the Eagles should be all in. The way they built the roster, the way that Howie Roseman has built this roster, they are Super Bowl or bust this season. Except for this trade, which we're worried about 2 years down the road. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up.
There's no such thing. And you brought up Les Snead the other day because F them picks became a big thing. I'm surprised Mike Gill doesn't have an F them picks t-shirt because that's a great t-shirt. And the Rams went all in and they won the Super Bowl and everybody says the Rams didn't go all in at every position. They didn't play all veteran players. They're playing Nick Harris at safety and Taylor Rapp at safety. Young guys throwing them out there. You can't do it at every position. So the assumption of all in means
I'm talking about Haason Reddick, one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. You're going to compare him to a backup safety?
No,
we have to stay focused on the individual we're talking about. There are generalities and overall looks, and then there's the individual, the level of the player we're talking about. And Haason Reddick is the level of the player we're talking about.
What I'm saying
is the
comparison is not about the player. The comparison,
well, it should be.
Well, because you want it to be, but because
it's a fact. We're talking about Haason Reddick being traded. We're not talking about anybody else being traded. We're talking about one player.
We had this discussion
in a transaction.
It was Jody. It was my premise. It's not your premise. My premise is when people say everybody's all in, they say, "Oh, you got to do this. You got to be all in with every decision. Every decision. If you're all in, you're all in." I'm saying that's bullshit. That's my premise. No team in the history of football has ever been all in at every position at one time because it's not possible to do that. So what the Eagles said, we don't want to pay this guy $20+ million. They have Bryce Huff, who they already agreed to pay. They have Nolan Smith, who you can say shouldn't be on the field, but they want him on the field. And they have these players. My premise is not about Haason Reddick. It's about the all-in sentiment. And you got to be all in at every position, every decision, every time. I'm saying that does not exist. It never has.
John, let me ask you then, they clear out Reddick now. Does that mean, now they have the flexibility to
they could
be more all in at another spot?
Could, yeah. And it already has. They brought in Bryce Huff, a younger player at that position. It may not work. That's about evaluation. That part, I mean, the evaluation might not work, but they already have a younger player that they think is ascending versus descending.
Well, I mean, can they
at a slightly lower cost?
Safety? Can they look to bring in another linebacker or safety or even a nickel corner?
Well, they could do a lot of things. It more likely on the trade
because of this trade.
It helps a little bit, but they could have done that.
No, it doesn't.
Before.
It's a wash. They didn't pick up any cap room by this. There's as much dead cap money as the money they're saving on Reddick. The only one who saves is Jeff Lurie.
No, well, from the perspective of they pick up 1.3 or whatever it is salary cap in the immediate moment.
As a matter of fact, John,
it's not helping. It's not helping. Jeffrey Lurie's already outlaid the money he guaranteed to Haason Reddick. It doesn't help Jeffrey Lurie a little bit. This is a decision this is a strategical decision to move on from Haason Reddick because they want to build a roster the way they want to build a roster. You don't want three, as I said. They were going to pay 2 edge rushers, 2 of the 3. Once they got Bryce Huff, 2 of the 3. And then they worked out a deal with Josh Sweat before they worked out a deal with Haason Reddick. In theory, if they worked out a deal with Haason Reddick that was acceptable to both sides, Josh Sweat would probably be out of here. That's the way it works. That's the way it worked at cornerback last year. So
if Reddick was willing to take less, he wanted more. Sweat took the less, therefore they kept him and shipped out the other guy.
And I don't think it's even about necessarily less. They were, Josh didn't have nearly as much leverage as Haason Reddick. I think they might have signed Haason Reddick for another, not an extension, but they would have reworked the final year of his deal to the point that they would have given him all his money up front. They probably would have spiked him up to 18 or 19 million. And if that would have been acceptable to him, because I don't think he would have played for less than Bryce Huff, and I don't think he should play for less than Bryce Huff on the Philadelphia Eagles, to be perfectly honest. I understand that from Haason's perspective. I think Haason wanted more than that. It's understandable. There's 2 guys in this league that have had double-digit sacks, 4+ seasons. I understand why he thinks he's worth what he thinks he's worth, but the Eagles don't. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
So, Michael, here's my question for you. If the Eagles come up short this year, make the playoffs, maybe they win the division, maybe they lose at Lincoln Financial Field, maybe they go wild card again. If they get picked off in the playoffs, first and or second round, don't make it to an NFC Championships game, does Howie Roseman say in the post-press conference, yeah, but I got the Jets second round pick in 2026?
Well, I don't think he comes out and says that.
He's smart to say it, but
I'm sure I agree that I think he feels like, hey, that was a win for me to get what I got for a guy that we had no intentions of paying the money that he wanted. And we don't want an unhappy player around here. So I feel like in Howie's mind, he got a win, that he got what he asked for, potentially a second round pick. Is he okay if it's a third round pick in 2 years from now when Reddick is, because then you're looking at a Reddick player who's probably a declined player. And then on the surface, say, man, we got a draft pick in this draft for a guy who's barely on the field anymore to that extent. So, yeah, the general manager certainly thinks differently than the fans do, right? I mean,
or the head coach. I mean, this happened at the scouting combine where, Howie went first at the combine. And he was asked a question about Nolan Smith, about getting him on the field. Yeah, I think it was more broad-based about getting younger players on the field more. And he brought up Nolan Smith, and he said, yeah, we have to do a better job of that. And then Nick talked after Howie and basically reversed course and said, my job is to win on game day. And whoever the best option is to win on game day, I'm going to play to win on game day. So, they have different jobs. And I think people don't understand that.
They do, but I think a lot of people put them in concert together a lot, that they're on the same page and that they have streamlined opinions that are coming together from the front office to the coaching. Much, like we talk about a lot in sports, baseball, the front office and the manager, are they on the same page with the lineup and the pitching and how many pitches in this lineup today because this guy's numbers? A lot of people think that the Eagles front office is essentially streamlined down to Nick Sirianni.
You know what, Mike? I brought up Moneyball, the movie. Love the movie. People get sick of me when I bring it up, but I'll bring it up again. In the movie, Billy Beane built a roster. Art Howe in the movie, Philip Seymour Hoffman, didn't want to use the roster the way he built it. So what did he do? He traded a player, so he was forced to play the player he wanted played. That's what GMs do sometimes. And I think that's what happened here. I really do. The Eagles want Nolan Smith on the field.
But that's
Nolan Smith better be Hatterberg.
I agree.
Because if he isn't, that's egg all over Howie Roseman's face.
I agree. Nolan Smith better be. I think more pressure on Nolan Smith than even Bryce Huff.
Well, let me ask
Bryce Huff was going to play. whether Reddick was here or not. He was going to play a lot.
Do we think Vic Fangio said Reddick's not a fit for me? Go ahead and move him.
That's possible too. That is very possible because he likes those quarter flat defenders that can drop in coverage when he wants to drop them in coverage and be somewhat successful. The obvious Andrew Van Ginkel last year because how he kind of brought him up and saying Zach Bond offers some of those traits. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Vic likes that type of player. I don't necessarily think Haasan's that type of player. I don't know.
Whoa. Time out, Vic Fangio. How's Bryce Huff in that aspect of football? Being able to drop in coverage.
Never been asked to do it. So we'll see.
So let's get rid of one of the best defensive ends for a guy who we're going to say the aspect of the ability to drop in coverage is a key dimension of what the defense coordinator wants to do. Let's replace him with a guy who's never done it, ever. The Jets never asked him to do it. He had one direction, straight ahead to the quarterback. They never dropped him in coverage. So let's remove a guy who's already proven as an all-pro and an MVP level defensive player for someone who's never done it. And on the other side, you got Nolan Smith, who's never done anything in a National Football League. They can't get him on the field. The coach wants to win games, and he's got him nailed to the bench. So let's put those two guys on the edge because Vic Fangio likes dropping his defensive ends in coverage.
Well,
doesn't seem like a winning plan to me.
A lot of this, Jody, as we know, is a lot of projection. That's
what the NFL is.
The Eagles are projecting. The Eagles are projecting that Reddick is going to take a step back, and therefore was worth the risk of moving him to bring in a younger player who showed the potential of being somewhat where Reddick was, getting to the quarterback. I don't know. You want to say chasing sacks, a guy who just not good against the run, wants to get after the quarterback. And the Eagles are watching this and saying, we've got a younger version of that. We're going to take the chance that this player went from 18.5 sacks down the next year and that he's going to take another step back. They have been pretty good at projecting that in their history with guys right around this age. And it pissed off a lot of fans when they let Trey Thomas and Hugh Douglas and Jeremiah Trotter and many others go. But guess what? Those guys couldn't play anymore, and they were right a lot of times. So they're taking that stance again that we have a guy who was very productive here, wants more money, but it would be foolish of us to pay him. Now, it might backfire like Brian Dawkins did. That's only one guy of the group of guys they let go, though.
I don't even think that backfired. I get he had one good year in Denver.
Well, but
he was clearly
still had a little gas in the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the old adage is, better to give up on a player a year early than a year late. Yeah. Sometimes you get a year. Sometimes Haason Reddick, I think, is going to be great for the Jets for a number of reasons. I think there's still enough in the tank, and I think he's got a great supporting cast. That is a really talented defense. I think that's going to help him out. I think he's going to have a very good year for the New York Jets. And in the short term, it's going to look very bad for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, and there's one other thing that I think we have to keep an eye on here. Because the draft, you're at pick 22 and it's still about a month away. I think they have traded up or moved in this draft, 4 out of the last 5 years. Like, it's not inconceivable that there's still another move that we're talking about Friday, April 26th, that we're like, didn't see that coming. That's somewhat surfacing around what's happening right now on that defensive side of the ball. Because I can't imagine, guys, that this defense is a finished product.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's pretty much.
Whoa.
I don't think they're getting Simmons. And if you're suggesting a trade up to get a key defensive player, I'll tell you, I think it's much more likely the Eagles trade back than trade up. They don't have a lot of ammunition. They've got 8 picks, which 7 rounds, 8 picks. That's slightly over. 5 of them are in day 3. And what is a 5th round draft pick? How many slots did that move you up in the first round? Not a whole hell of a lot. So I think there's a better chance.
You got future picks.
Yeah, but a lot of times you could use those in a same situation where you get a player who might be a little older and on the end of the deal.
Hold on. I got to answer you on a question. Future picks. So you think they're going to trade a future pick?
Not necessarily. I'm saying you never because I blame myself. I raised my own hand. I said, well, Howie isn't getting a day 2 pick for Haason Reddick, and I closed the book on that. And he doesn't. He says, well, yeah, I can't get a day 2 pick this year. I can't get it in 20, but I found it in 2026.
2026, right?
I'm saying he has the luxury again of thinking about the future that other guys don't. And he has the ability to pull strings in the future that other GMs don't. And he often takes advantage of what they call that market inefficiency. They think it's a market inefficiency. I think they're right. But until other people practice the patience of Jeffrey Lurie, he can take advantage of that type
so
of thing.
Then why would, if that's your modus operandi, that this year you're looking big picture, you're looking,
well, he's always
we won't worry much about today. We'll put just as much emphasis on tomorrow.
It's not this season. It's every season.
Well, then why would you trade a future pick for a couple of slots to move up this year if it's not about this season?
Because if you love a particular player, he did it last year for Kaylee Ringo in the 4th round. He gave up a future third round pick.
We're talking about the 1st round pick. Mike was saying another major addition to the defense. I'm not going to consider it. Move up 4 slots in the 4th round as a major addition.
He gave up a future pick to move up to the top of the 4th round because he liked the player so much and he saw value in that particular player more than a 2024 3rd round pick in his estimation. He can do stuff like that. He has the luxury to. It might not work out. I think Kaylee Ringo's got a very high upside. But we'll see how it unfolds over the years. I get it. It's not just about the 1st round. It's not just about this year. He doesn't change his philosophy from year to year. It's always about the bigger picture. It's always about more than 1 year. Now, in the modern NFL, you can't go out 4 or 5 years. For him, it's 2-3 years. And it's always about the mosaic. It's not about one move. It's not about this move or this move. It's the whole thing. And he's got crap in his mind that none of us know. And yeah, it all factors in. Like people are talking about James Bradbury. Why is James Bradbury here? Because he doesn't have a replacement yet. If he has a replacement post June 1st, you're not going to see James Bradbury.
Did you watch the stuff that was on with the GM from the Cardinals yesterday? Did you see any of that?
No.
Austin Fort. There was a little video that they did of him.
Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah.
And he's just, he's on the phone. And I'm thinking, this is the guy from the Cardinals who he may be a good GM. He might not be. I said, he's got one phone. He's making a call. I said, Roseman's probably got like 8 phones out on that day. All of them on speakerphone at the same time, going right down the line. Here's this one guy. Hey, bud, what's up? I'm thinking, this guy's no wonder he's getting circles run around. And they're acting like this guy had made the greatest trade of all time last year. And I'm like, this seemed pretty basic. Like on a draft night, it seemed very calm, very slow. And I'm looking at what you envision's going on in that draft room with a guy like Roseman, who's just moving up. And the trade that he was trying to make seems similar to what the Eagles tried to do. He went from to 12. He was trying to get back up to 6, remember? And he's trying to make all the phone calls. But I'm envisioning Roseman just heckling these people on the phone constantly. Just like, hey, bud, what do you got?
I don't know if he's got,
you got a figure out pick?
I don't know if he's got 8 phones, but the key to it is the preparation. Because you know the players. You have the players you have targeted for a specific pick. In the case of Devontae
But the
Smith,
numbers too, the numbers of what picks they have and what numbers and where they are in each round.
And that's where the prep comes in. Because all right, we got 4 players we want at 12. And when the 3rd one came off the board and Devontae Smith is the last one, and you see the New York Giants sitting there, and the New York Giants are taking Devontae Smith, bang, you got to act, or you got to try to act. And that's what he did. And he moved ahead of them. to get Devontae Smith. Worked out for both the Dallas Cowboys. Interestingly, it was all NFC East teams. Worked out tremendously for Dallas as well because they got the drop down, still got Micah Parsons. Eagles got Devontae Smith. The poor Giants, they're floundering. They don't know what to do at 11. They trade back, ultimately draft Kadarius Toney, which was a disaster. So it's usually it's about preparation.
Well, with all that, guys, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday, so the odds for the NFC East, no team has repeated in 20 years. And the Eagles and the Cowboys are tied at plus 150 as the favorites. The Commanders and the Giants are both plus 900. They're telling you that the Eagles are going to win the division again.
And I would suggest that if Haason Reddick was still on the Eagles, they'd actually be the
favorite.
favorite.
Oh, that's what I'm asking you, Joe. So are you saying this will be the first time a team repeats?
No,
Dallas repeats.
No, because Dallas has done nothing. The Eagles could win the division by default. They lost 6 of their last 7, including the playoff game. They could win as many games as they won last year and win the division. Because I think the Cowboys are going backwards. It's more a statement about the Cowboys than it is about, the Eagles are going to be improved. I don't know that the Eagles are going to be improved, but they can win the division just because the NFC East. But here's the thing about the NFC East. I think the Commanders could be better. If they get Drake May, I think Drake May is ready to step in and play day one in the National Football League. They take him at number 2, the free agency moves that they made. They were a pretty poor football team last year, coming apart at the seams, coaching, the ownership sale, all that stuff. It was basically a dumpster fire all year. At least they got some stability to that organization. Beating the Commanders twice next year is not going to be easy for the Eagles.
And it hasn't been even when they've been a dumpster
it hasn't
fire,
been.
Right?
Yeah.
I was surprised
here. Ironically, they always beat them down there. Here.
I was surprised too that the Giants and the Commanders were both plus 900. I think Washington is moving in a better direction. Although the Giants have had some sneaky under the radar moves, but I think the quarterback position, plus they got to replace the running back, and they have not a lot of weapons there.
Speaking of odds, I'll leave it there with you at Mike Gill Show. Make sure you listen to Mike on the Sports Bash. If you're local in South Jersey, 2 to 6 drive time every day. Number 1 in the market. Congratulations, as usual, Mike, for that. We all get these draft odds in our mailbox and our email box every day. I got the latest Eagles draft odds. Number 22, it was all cornerback driven. Nate Wiggins plus 225, Kool-Aid McKinstry plus 300, Enos Rakestraw plus 600, Cooper DeJean plus 650. The low non-corner was Chop Robinson at plus 500. The field was plus 450. I'm taking the field.
How many guys did they give you for?
5. 4 corners and Chop Robinson.
5 and/or the field. The field at plus 4. That's a great bet.
Yeah, I would take the field. And
run. Absolutely.
Yeah. I like the kid from Washington, the lineman. How do you say Tutu?
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, right. But he seems to fit the mold because versatile, can play all 5 positions on the line. He's been a tackle, guard. Has played. Could play some center. Very athletic. He fits what they like on the offensive line. So if he was there, I wouldn't be shocked.
Troy, I'm going to try. Troy Fautanu is my guess.
Fautanu. I saw it phonetically spelled and it didn't make sense, but Troy Fautanu. Washington offensive line, if he's there at 22, I wouldn't be shocked. Very athletic guy, and the Eagles like that versatility that he can play multiple spots on the line. So you gave me draft odds. He wasn't in there. And that's why I would go field.
Well, I would go field because, they're looking at corner. And they have a needed corner. And I think they might target a specific player. And for me, that would be Quinyon Mitchell. But you got to go up. And as Jody pointed out, that's easier said than done. And if they can't get a Quinyon Mitchell, I think a lot of people don't know or don't understand. Look, if there's 5 good corners and all those players you can make cases for, you're not going to like all 5. If you like all 5, there's something wrong with your process. They got to fit your scheme. They got to pick what Big Fangio wants. They got to do certain things well. They're all different types of players. You don't just say, oh, there's 5 corners, I'm going to take the best of the 5 corners. You're probably not going to like that player. Most NFL teams who do it the right way, and then you got to go in a different direction. So I think that's going to happen. The Eagles need a corner. They might even want a corner more than anything else. I just don't think they're going to be able to get the corner they probably want if they sit at 22, and then you got to shift directions.
Well, what position are they going to get the player that they want at 22?
Well, you're never going to get the player you want because you probably want, the best player in the draft, and obviously you're not in a position to get it. I'm saying you're going to have a group like they did with my example with Devontae Smith. They're going to have a group of 4 or 5 players they hope falls to them at 22. That's how you do this. And, some of them are going to come off and they're going to go blah, blah. And if they're all off and you're not able to go up and get one like they did with Devontae, then you start talking about trading back, and you probably have another group of 4 or 5 you're comfortable with at 27 or 20 and do that type of thing. That's the trick, matching up the evaluation with the valuation and yada, yada. That's sort of the trick of it.
And Mike, one thing, if you're going to continue on with the Washington kid as your potential Eagle pick, here's something that always scares me for a player who's got tremendous versatility. There's a possibility that he needs that versatility. I'd rather have a guy who is dominant at one position. He's a center. He's a tackle. He can play center. He can play left guard. He can play right guard. He can play left tackle. Part of that is he hasn't been that good that they go, oh, shit, we can't move him from that position. Yeah. We need to lock his ass in there and not even think about moving him around. Versatility is nice, but sometimes versatility shows non-dominance. So if you're going to go there with him, be careful.
Apparently, Stoutland worked him out at the combine and was very impressed by him. So the fact that he got a good look at him in person. Now, Landon Dickerson was a guy who could play multiple positions on the line, ended up settling in at left guard, but could have been a center, could have been a right guard, probably could have played some. But it just the kind of player that they like. I didn't say that I would be happy with that pick. It just seems that that's the kind of player that, hey, we need a right guard right now. In 2 years, we may need a right tackle if Lane Johnson's not here and he can bounce out and play right tackle. Lane, they drafted, we thought to be the left tackle. He hasn't moved in 12 years now. He's kind of stuck at that spot. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up taking a player like that if they were there at 22. John and I think last week when you were on with me, we were laughing about Mike Tannenbaum had that GM mock draft. We had Brock Bowers. He would be like the Bijan Robinson conversation if he fell.
Well, they need a tight end, but Mike had him fall into 22.
And if he fell at 22, would we be saying, holy crap, they cooked Brock Bowers at number 22?
Oh, yeah, well, I'm taking him at 22. If he falls to 22, he ain't falling to 22. That's why I was laughing at Mike. And I love Mike.
Well, that's what we were saying. We were laughing because we didn't think he would get to that point. But if you're watching the draft that night and here he is, what part of the draft would they say, this guy's here, we got to move up to get him?
Nah, they wouldn't. That's why I think Mike did it the way he did it. They wouldn't move up to get him. But if he's sitting there at 22, how do you think? You got your big draft board and you rank the players all in talent, positions aside, and he's sitting there at number 4. That he's the fourth most talented player in the draft, and he's available at number 22. Sorry, Dallas Goedert, you got company. We're going to run 2 tight ends next year because we're not passing on that kind of talent at 22. Bowers is just too good.
Yeah, people don't like taking tight ends that high, but I can't even imagine a world where he's falling to 22. I can't even
love to see that happen because A, the Eagles would get a good player, and B, it would put some pressure on Howie Roseman. Mike Gill, always a pleasure, my friend. Wear your Penn shirt proudly all day. Look at him.
I will do my best, man. I will do my best to see if I think this thing can start walking off me pretty soon.
There you go. Mike Gill from down the shore.
Thanks, Mike.
On Birds 365. All right. We've been talking plenty about the draft. We're going to do a lot of that in hour number 2 as well. Matt Manicherian. I hope you recognize the name. He's been on with us previously. Vice President Football Analytics for Sports Info Solutions is going to jump in coming up in just a couple of minutes here. Keep it here on Birds 365.